The time is now 5:30 and we do have quorum present. So I will call this meeting of the Madison Plan Commission of July 29th, 2024 to order. First, we will hear from our technical facilitator, Jesse.
All right, welcome to our virtual Plan Commission meeting. We're going to cover a few basic items before beginning. If you lose connection at any point during the meeting, you can reconnect by clicking the link or calling the number in your original email. To members and city staff members, if you are able, please activate your video and keep it on for the duration of the meeting. Staff, if you are able, please activate your video when you are speaking. Use the raise hand feature when you'd like to be recognized to speak or ask questions. Staff, click raise hand when you are asked a question. The chair will do the best to call on committee members in the order in which their hands are raised. Lowering your hand will take you out of the queue. Members of the public who have registered to speak, the name you entered in Zoom must match the name you entered in registration. You will remain muted until called upon. The clerk will tell you when your time is up. After all registrants speak, a member of the body may ask you a question. If you need to share documentation with the commission, please send it to the email list in today's agenda. Chair, the floor is yours.
Thank you, Jesse. First, communications, disclosures, and recusals. Members of the body should make any required disclosures or recusals. Commissioner Mendez.
Thank you, Chair. I need to disclose that I am part of the project team and worked on the staff report for agenda items 12 and 13, or response. So we'll be recusing myself, from those two items.
Thank you, Commissioner. Alder Field.
Yep. Thank you, Chair. I wanted to disclose that I'm also an employee of the University of Wisconsin, but not anywhere related to the work happening on items 12 and 13, but I wanted to disclose that and it will not affect my vote. Thank you.
Okay. Thank you. Commissioner McCahill.
I will echo Alderfield's disclosure, also employee of the university, but not related at all to the project, and it will not affect my decision.
Okay, thank you, Commissioner. Okay, I don't believe we have any public comment. I will look to Bill to correct me if I'm wrong.
We do not.
Okay, very good. Then moving on, minutes of July 8th. Regular meeting. Are there any additions or corrections to the minutes? Seeing no raised hands, is there a motion to approve? Moved by Commissioner Solheim, seconded by Alder Ugair. I will assume unanimous consent unless I see a raised hand to object. Seeing no raised hands, the motion passes unanimously. Okay, now schedule of upcoming meetings. Monday, August 26th and September 9th and 23rd at 5:30, and those are virtual meetings. Next, we will move to our consent agenda. It's the custom of the Plan Commission to remove from the agenda those items on which staff believes an application has had sufficient review to warrant approval with all of the conditions placed upon it by the various city departments, on which the applicant accepts those conditions, and there are no individuals who have registered to speak in opposition to the item. So we take those up now, and then people who are interested in those can sign off. So I will read the agenda items, and I will then ask whether there's any requests for separation. We also include referrals in our consent agenda. So the first item is agenda item 2, and that is for referral. Agenda item 4 Agenda item 5 for referral, agenda items 6 and 7. And agenda items 12, 13, 17, and 18. Are there, Anjali? You have your hand raised. No? Okay. Okay. Are there any requests for separation? Seeing no raised hands, I'll read each of those then into the agenda. Again, agenda item 2 for referral, Legistar 82973, referred to December 2nd at the request of staff and pending a recommendation by the Urban Design Commission. Agenda item 4, Legistar 83947, creating sections of the Madison General Ordinances to amend a planned development district general development plan for property located at 603 South Whitney Way and creating sections to approve a specific implementation plan. Agenda item 5 for referral, Legistar 83951, referred to August 26, pending a recommendation by the Landmarks Commission. Agenda item 6, Legistar 83977, located at 2104 through 2136 City View Drive, Alder District 17, consideration of a conditional use to allow indoor recreation in a multi-tenant building. Agenda item 7, Legistar 84333, located at 702 through 726 South High Point Road and 601 through 701 South Junction Road, Alder District 1, consideration of an alteration to an approved planned development district, specific implementation plan to approve a new entrance location for a private school tenant in the existing Holy Name Heights Bishop O'Connor Center mixed-use development. Agenda items 12 and 13, which are related. Legistar 83754, located at 1430 through 1436 Monroe Street, consideration of a demolition permit to demolish the McLean Athletic Center and Camp Randall Sports Center. Agenda item 13, Legistar 83909, creating sections of the Madison General Ordinance to change the zoning of property at that same location from planned development specific implementation plan to amended planned development, general development plan district, and creating sections to change the zoning from amended PD GDP to PD SIP in Alder District 5. Agenda item 17 and 18, which are related. Legistar 83946, creating sections of the Madison General Ordinances to change the zoning of property located at 4538 through 4610 East Broadway from industrial limited to suburban employment, Alder District 16, and Legistar 83755, approving a certified survey map of property owned by Summit Credit Union and 401 North 3rd Street, NV LLC, located at 4538 through 4610 East Broadway, Alder District 16. Is there, first I'll open the public hearing, no registrants wishing to speak. I'll close the public hearing. Is there a motion to approve the consent agenda? Moved by Commissioner Solheim, seconded by Alder Ugair. I will go immediately to a vote unless I see a hand. Commissioner Mendez.
Yes, Chair. I'd like to abstain from voting, please.
Okay, thank you. One abstention, and I will assume other than that, unanimous consent unless I see a raised hand to object. Seeing no raised hands, the motion passes unanimously. Okay, moving on. Agenda item 3, Legistar 84038, zoning text amendment, amending sections 28.071 paren 3 paren A1 and 28074 paren 6 of the Madison General Ordinances relating to parking to prohibit surface parking in the downtown core district. And we do have one registrant wishing to speak. Alex Salutos, in support and wishing to speak. Alex, you have 3 minutes.
All right. Is my microphone working?
It sure is.
Okay. If you could give me a 30-second warning, that would be helpful. I support this. It makes sense. The reason I wanted to chat with you today about this is it raises a couple of other issues that are directly related to it. First, in the staff memo, I wanted to call your attention to the second of the last paragraph in the staff memo on this item. State statutes do not contain a presumption of approval for conditional use permits. It's crucial that you base your decisions on substantial evidence that all requirements and conditions are met without assuming a bias towards approval. The state statute requires the applicant to demonstrate all requirements and conditions are met or will be met with substantial evidence. That's the applicant's responsibility, not the city. Additionally, if the Plan Commission finds the applicant has failed to provide substantial evidence that any of the requirements or conditions has been or will be met, or there is substantial evidence that any of the requirements or conditions are not met, you should deny the conditional use permit, and courts will uphold your decision. In addition, this ordinance has some requirements about the design of the buildings. Parking shall be located in parking structures underground or in surface parking lots behind principal buildings. Parking structures shall be designed with liner buildings or with ground floor office or residential or retail uses along all street-facing facades. That, to me, is a beautiful sentence, but the concern that I have is this protection is not provided in other zoning districts where it should be. In some zoning districts, there's no requirement for any retail, or in some of the mixed-use districts, there's no requirement for a minimum amount of commercial or retail, which is wrong. And I've asked you before, and I'll ask you again, that you should look at the other zoning districts to see.
Excuse me,
where
Alex.
This is,
Your 30-second warning.
yeah, this is relevant. And then lastly, I just want to conclude, these every other week or every other meeting, there are ordinance changes, and that's wrong. They should be batched together, and you should have a bigger body of stakeholders reviewing these, because the unintended consequences are when you do it this way. Thank you.
Thank you, Alex. Okay. Any questions of Alex? Seeing no raised hands, I will close the public hearing. Are there any questions of staff? Seeing none, is there a motion? Alder Ugair. Alder? Alder Ugair?
Move the approval of the amendment to the ordinance.
Seconded by Alder Field. Any discussion? Alder Ugair, did you wish to speak to your motion?
No, I think that the staff comments on it are quite clear. Doesn't require further explanation.
Okay, thank you. If there are no further comments, we will come to a vote, and I will assume unanimous consent unless I see a raised hand to object. Seeing no raised hands, the motion passes unanimously. Next on the agenda are agenda items 8 and 9, and they will be considered as one public hearing, and then we will need to make separate findings and motions on each agenda item. Agenda item 8, Legistar 83960, located at 901 Woodward Drive, Alder District 18, consideration of a demolition permit to demolish a single-family residence. And agenda item 9, Legistar 84026, same location, consideration of a conditional use to construct a single-family residence on a lakefront parcel. I think first we're going to hear from Colin.
Thank you, Chair Zellers. So as the chair noted, before the commission now is a demolition permit to raise a single-family residence and conditional use for lakefront development to construct a new single-family residence. Planning Division staff believes that the standards for demolition permits, conditional uses, and lakefront development can all be found met subject to the recommended conditions of approval found in the staff report. Staff does understand that the applicant wishes to address the commission to discuss recommended conditions from the Office of the Zoning Administrator regarding some of the requirements of the lakefront development section of the code. After the public hearing, I am available to answer any questions regarding that section of the code or about process. Thank you.
Thank you, Colin. With that, I will open the public hearing, and we have one registrant, Steve Cockle, 2746 Nadine Road, Cottage Grove, Wisconsin, indicating not representing anybody, but I think he is representing the applicant. But correct me if I'm wrong, Steve. You have 3 minutes. Steve?
Hello?
Yes.
Hello?
Yes.
Okay,
You have,
wonderful. Thank you.
you have 3 minutes. And are you the applicant?
Yes.
Thank you.
So I agree with everything in the staff report except for the last sentence of item number 2, which says a balcony or deck elevated over 3 feet above the adjacent ground level may not encroach into the lakefront yard setback. I've requested several times from Katie Bannon and others at the zoning department some sort of an ordinance to support that, and they either can't or won't supply such a thing. In my reading of the ordinances, let's see here. I know such here. 28.132, encroachments into setback areas, lists various encroachments which are allowed into front yards, side yards, or rear yards. One of the items is a balcony, which is allowed a 6-foot rear yard setback encroachment. The lakefront yard at my property is opposite of the front yard or the street side, so I don't think there's any argument that it's a rear yard. Then, under the Let me see here. What section is this? Sorry, just my pages here. 28.138, lakefront development. It lists a number of additional conditions for lakefront development. One of the things it says in there is that all new principal buildings shall meet the requirements of this subsection. Shall, meaning it must. Within that section, 28.138, 4A, it states, the lakefront yard is not the front yard and shall be a side yard or rear yard for the purposes of the zoning code. The zoning code says I can encroach up to 6 feet into a rear yard under the encroachment section, and this section says that my lakefront yard is a rear yard for the purposes of the zoning code. There are no exceptions listed in that sentence. There's no asterisk. It's absolute. It means that my lakefront yard is a rear yard for all purposes of the zoning code. That is all I have to say.
Thank you, Steve.
Thanks.
Are there any questions of Steve? Commissioner Solheim.
Just to clarify, Steve, what you are looking for is a balcony that would fit within that 6 feet. You are not looking for an exception beyond 6 feet. Is that correct? If you can unmute.
Sorry. Can you hear me?
Yes.
Yes. So from the furthest point, the point of the house would be closest to the lake. The balcony would extend no more than 6 feet.
Okay. Thank you. That's all.
Any other questions of Steve? Any other questions of Steve? Seeing none, I will close the public hearing. Are there questions of staff? Commissioner Heck.
Thank you. I guess I'll ask Colin if he knows about that discrepancy with regard to no feet or 3 feet or 6 feet.
Yes, the list of encroachments that are allowed, which the applicant referred to in 28.132, is quite long and includes a number of different categories. And so I believe that the zoning administrator is not interpreting the wished for encroachment as a balcony, but as a covered porch for a portion of it, and as an elevated deck for another portion of it, which to the best of our knowledge, and we have gone back through previous plans or staff reports, that for as long as any of us on staff are aware, have always been considered by the zoning administrator to not be allowed encroachments within the lakefront setback. We at this point, we don't believe that the Plan Commission can make a change to that interpretation by the zoning administrator. This has been policy for decades and decades. At this point, our understanding is that only the Zoning Board of Appeal can change that official interpretation of the zoning administrator to determine whether the encroachments that Mr. Cockle is looking for actually are allowed under 28.132 or if they are not.
So thanks, Colin. You're saying, first of all, I guess two questions. First, you're saying that this is particular to lakefront properties, this interpretation, or would that be with regard to all, say, rear yard setback requirements?
Yes, it's particular to lakefront. The section in the code is 28138, which is lakefront development and lakefront rear yards.
Okay, and would you would you recommend that perhaps the applicant go to ZBA if they feel like they have an opportunity to gain relief from that? I mean, I know that's their choice, but that would be, we could approve it as is potentially, and he could just appeal to the ZBA that portion of it.
So yes, it is up to the applicant whether he goes to the ZBA to seek that relief from the interpretation of the zoning administrator. It would be best if he go there first and then come back to the Plan Commission with the interpretation, whether it is favorable to his stance or is upholding the zoning administrator's interpretation, and then the Plan Commission would review and potentially approve the proposal with whatever interpretation is I guess the controlling interpretation at that point. We would not recommend that he pursue approval by the Plan Commission if he disagrees with the conditions of approval as they stand right now, and then go to the Zoning Board of Appeals. If he accepts the approval of the Plan Commission with the current interpretation, that is the expected condition that his house would be then be built under.
Right.
So the order of operations would be ZBA first and then Plan Commission, rather than the other way around. But I think from a process standpoint, a referral to a future date pending an interpretation or a finding by the ZBA would be the cleanest way for the applicant and the commission to undertake this.
Thank you. The demolition permit could be approved, though, potentially at this meeting without any implications with regard to the conditional use.
Yes, that is correct.
Okay, thank you very much.
Are there any further questions of staff? Seeing none, I would be looking for a motion on agenda item 8, Legistar 83960, the consideration of a demolition permit. Commissioner Heck.
Thank you. Could I first, Chair, ask if we could reopen the public hearing to ask the applicant what his choice might be with regard to what we were just discussing?
Certainly. Without objection, I would look to commissioners. Without objection, I will reopen the public hearing. Steve, you probably heard that question of Commissioner Heck. Could you respond to that? You need to unmute yourself, Steve.
Can you hear me?
Yes.
Can you hear me? Okay.
Yes.
May I rebut something that Colin said?
Well, I think the question on the floor is Commissioner Heck's question, which is, would you choose to go with the conditions within the staff report, or are you choosing to go to the Zoning Board of Appeals?
If I could add just one more thing, sorry, Steve. You can also choose just to accept a referral to an indeterminate date, and then you can decide in the coming weeks whether you will want to go to ZBA or not. You always would still have that option. Thanks, Chair.
Thank you, Commissioner.
Okay. Well, where I'm at is weather is going to become a factor shortly in the building a house. The builder estimates it'll take 5 months to build it, which getting started in August puts it finishing in January, and if it gets pushed back much further, then it may not even be able to be started this year, which of course puts a financial burden on me in paying double property taxes for my current house versus this unoccupied house. And so, I mean, I would like to get started if it is feasible to get the approvals, but then to appeal the one sentence of the approval. I guess that would be the way I would like to go, if that's possible. And again, if you know, there were some things that Colin said that I disagreed with, but I'm not going to go into those unless I'm allowed to.
Okay, thank you, Steve. Any further questions of Steve while we have the public hearing open? Colin, did you want to comment?
Yeah, I just had one additional clarification regarding process that if the applicant did receive his conditional use approval per the recommended conditions of approval at this meeting, any change to the conditions of approval would be a major alteration to that conditional approval. So in one scenario, he could accept the conditions as they are now, go to the ZBA. If the ZBA finds the interpretation in his favor, he could return to the Plan Commission with a major alteration to his conditional use, and build the structure that he would like to as presented now. But if the ZBA does not interpret according to what he wants, he still has his approval as it would be presented tonight.
Okay, thank you for that clarification, Colin. Commissioner Heck.
I have no further questions for Steve, but now I have a follow-up question for Colin.
Okay, any questions for Steve before we go back to questions of staff? Seeing no raised hands, I will reclose the public hearing. Go ahead, Patrick, with your question of Colin.
Thank you. This could go round and round. I guess, Colin, the scenario that you just described would likely add substantial length to the process. A major alteration was require a public notice, and I'm guessing a month or 6 weeks or something at least. Would that be a good guess?
Yes. A major alteration would require a complete new land use application, new notice, assuming that the applicant would have to submit the 30-day notification prior to submitting the land use application. We're looking at about 3-ish months in that official process that would follow the ZBA approval.
Thanks.
Or ZBA finding.
I'm guessing the 30-day requirement could be waived by the alder, so maybe 2 months. That's really about all it saves you. Well, I guess we have our choices in front of us. Thanks.
Thank you, Commissioner Heck and Colin. Any further questions of staff? Any further questions? Seeing no raised hands, I'm looking for a motion. First on the demolition permit. Commissioner Heck.
Thank you. I'll move approval of the demolition permit to demolish a single-family residence at 901 Woodward Drive.
Thank you. Is there a second? Seconded by Alder Duncan, did you wish to speak to your motion, Commissioner Heck?
No, I don't.
Okay. Any discussion? Seeing no raised hands, we'll come to a vote. I will assume unanimous consent unless I see a raised hand to object. Seeing no raised hands, the motion passes unanimously. Now, agenda item 9, Legistar 84026, the conditional use. Is there a motion? Commissioner Heck.
Thank you. I will move that we approve the conditional use to construct a single-family residence on a lakefront parcel at 901 Woodward Drive with all of the conditions as mentioned in the staff report.
Is there a second? Seconded by Alder Duncan. Did you wish to speak to your motion, Commissioner Heck?
Just briefly, and in light of our discussion earlier, I don't think there's a particularly painless path for this to be to go in front of the ZBA, and I also suspect, based on what I heard from staff, that the ZBA appeal might not be successful. So I'll go ahead and assume that that the staff report and conditions as written are the best path forward.
Thank you, Commissioner. Any discussion? Seeing no raised hands, we'll come to a vote, and I will assume unanimous consent unless I see a raised hand to object. Seeing no raised hands, the motion passes unanimously. Next are items 10 and 11, which are related and will be considered as one public hearing, and then separate findings and motions on each agenda item. Agenda item 10, 83978, 126 Langdon Street, Alder District 2, consideration of a conditional use in the downtown residential 2 district for a multi-family dwelling with greater than 8 dwelling units to allow construction of a 5-story 79-unit apartment building. Agenda item 11, Legistar 84330, approving a certified survey map of property owned by 126 Langdon Street LLC, located at 126 Langdon Street. First, we will hear from Colin Punt.
Yes, thank you again. So now before the Plan Commission is a conditional use for the applicant seeking approval to construct a 5-story residential building with 79 dwelling units on a single lot to be created by CSM. The lower level of the proposed building includes parking structure, access via a drive on the northeast side of the building. The parking structure also accommodates 35 vehicle parking stalls, as well as long-term indoor bicycle parking stalls. The site was formerly the site of a 7-story dormitory building that was demolished in 2019. Since then, there have been a number of fits and starts and proposals for larger apartment buildings on this site. With this proposal, staff does believe that when we consider the consistency of the proposal with the land use recommendations of the comprehensive plan, as well as the more specific use and height recommendations in the downtown plan, as well as the context of the surrounding developments and the consistency of use as a student-oriented housing development within this neighborhood, staff believes that all applicable conditional use standards of approval can be found met, pending the recommended conditions of approval. The applicant has also submitted a certified survey map, as I mentioned, to create the lot. Staff believe that all applicable standards for land divisions can be found met for that request as well.
Thank you. Okay, with that, I will open the public hearing, and first we will hear from Brian Munson, East Lakeside Street, Madison, in support, wishing to speak, representing Steve Brown Apartments. Brian, you have 3 minutes.
Well, good evening. Thank you very much. Again, Brian Munson with Vanderwall Associates. As mentioned, here on behalf of Steve Brown for the 126 Langdon Street project, yet another property with a long history. But we're happy to be here tonight at the culmination of a lot of work to bring forward a project that balances the adopted plans with the character of the neighborhood. The development teams work closely with Alders Bennett and MGR, the Campus Area Neighborhood Association, including through 2 neighborhood meetings, along with numerous discussions to bring forward a 79-unit, 5-story building for this vacant property, a building that reflects the characteristics of the neighborhoods by incorporating durable materials and compatible design, while meeting the opportunity for new housing on a site that doesn't require the removal of any. I'd also note that, as Colin stated, the design is consciously targeted to create a proposal that meets all the recommendations of the adopted plans and is not asking for any exceptions to the existing zoning on site. So with that, we're happy to be here with the support of Alder Bennett, as noted in her letter in Legistar, as well as city staff through their detailed report, and would respectfully request approval of the conditional use tonight, along with forwarding a recommendation of approval for the CSM to the council. Happy to answer any questions as always, but in the interest of time, would just request approval tonight so that we can move forward with implementing much needed housing. Thank you.
Thank you, Brian. The next registrant is Dan Seeley, West Gorham Street, Madison, in support, wishing to speak, also representing Steve Brown Apartments. Dan, you have 3 minutes.
Thank you, Chair. Can you hear me?
Yes.
Thank you, and good afternoon to everyone. I think Brian summed it up very well in his presentation to the Commission. We are here this afternoon and this evening with a proposal that meets the envelope that the zoning code provides for us. The project in front of you does not require or ask for any exceptions to that code. As many of you know, Steve Brown Apartments is a longtime operator in the Madison area. We are a manager as well as a developer, and would very much look forward to adding this much needed housing to our portfolio and continuing to provide the highest quality residences for the community of Madison in the downtown area. I am available to answer any questions, but as Brian said, in the interest of time, I respectfully request the approval at the recommendation of the staff and with the support of the alders. Thank you for your time tonight.
Okay, thank you, Dan. The next registrant is Mary Martell, 130 Langdon Street, Madison, opposed and wishing to speak, representing Sean Eagleberger, Executive Director at Pi Beta Phi, Kyle Gavin, Housing Director at Pi Beta Phi. And Mary, you have 3 minutes.
Can you guys hear me?
Yes.
Okay, perfect. You know what, Dan and Colin, we've been over this before, and I haven't noticed any real change in your original plan. Pi Beta Phi sorority and actually Kappa Sigma fraternity next door are going to be most affected by this construction. Our biggest complaint is the destruction of half of the horseshoe driveway. Now, I know Steve Brown says we own it and blah, 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 but are there any easements on it, which is what I really want to know, where we have any say in this? Secondly, I want to talk about access to our house once this building is constructed. First, I've been going back with University of Wisconsin-Madison Sanitation Service to talk to them about what the plan is and how will we have our garbage picked up. My second concern is fire truck access. There's nowhere for a fire truck to back out or turn around if, God forbid, they had to come to our house. Also, being a sorority, we have a food delivery truck that comes a few days a week. And I cannot control when they come and when they do not come. Yeah, they're kind of sporadic. But that's just another large truck that would have to get in front of our house that also would not be able to back out. Now, let me tell you why they can't back out. Kappa Sigma fraternity, from what I understand, a year ago, installed this curb behind, like on our driveway, that's also on the main driveway, and it's very difficult for even a car to back out of here, let alone a fire truck or a sanitation truck. In addition to this, there's a garage that's going to be coming out and using that one street. So we're going to have an apartment building, we're going to have my sorority, we're going to have the fraternity next door, and possibly the Kappa Alpha Thetas on the other side of the fraternity, all trying to use that same driveway, along with sanitation, fire trucks, food trucks, Amazon, Uber, you name it. I think it's just going to be really congested, and I'm really concerned about the ability for primarily fire truck access and the food truck access. And another thing is, it's like, in addition to all of this traffic that's going to be on this one street, this one driveway, there is, you're going to have students, all the students from these fraternities and sororities.
That concludes your 3 minutes. Thank you. Let's see if we have any other registrants. No, I don't see any other registrants wishing to speak. Are there questions of any of our registrants? Alder Ugair.
Is this a question for Mr. Munson? If he is still available?
Yep.
Yes, happy to answer any questions.
Okay. In fact, this question does go to the traffic management plan. I noted in the management plan that are part of the filings here, and I just want to be sure I understand. The fire access is on the east side of the building, and that's also where the garage entrance is and where I understand trash pickup will occur. And I was wondering, is the plan that the trash trucks will pull into the garage? I see in the basement plan that there is a trash area there. Is that correct?
Yes. Colin, if you could pull up the exhibits again and go to page 15, I think that would be helpful to illustrate some of the elements that are going on site. And while he's doing that, I would note that, like much of Langdon Street, this property has a variety of different overlaying easements. Let's see here. One more page forward. Sorry. For the fire access plan item that you had up there. So there's a lot of overlaying easements for utilities and access. And so one of the staff conditions notes that, and I would agree with, we agree with staff condition resolves any outstanding items. But I'll kind of walk through them in order. So fire access, as you see here, is something we've talked closely with the fire department, and we'll be revising this plan per their comment to extend that fire access lane as far plan left as possible. So exceeding the 150 foot, but that currently there is not any fire access, any area here that meets standard fire access protocol. And so the improvement of this project will actually create a new fire access lane that is 20 feet wide, extending all the way almost along the length of the building, planned north on this. That drive aisle will be widened and reconstructed and would then supply access to this building as well as the adjoining properties to the left, the Pi Beta Phi building, as well as the properties to the north. again, that would be an improvement over existing conditions. I would note that the easements in place do not include the U driveway that is currently built. But what we would be doing is shifting access to the properties to the lakeside from the south side of the building in this drawing to the north side and expanding on that. That would also serve as fire access and garbage access, as well as access to the underground parking. And yes, the garbage facilities for this building would be enclosed within the building and would be wheeled out to be picked up from the new driveway.
Okay, so they will be, I understand now. They will be wheeled out and the garbage truck will pick them out on that access road on the east side.
Yes, that's correct.
Okay, and then my other question is with regard to what I suppose will be a frequently used drop-off section. I saw that you have a staged or reservation style move-in, move-out plan, but that will happen on the west side. Looks like there's a carve-out from the street on that side. I guess we're looking at it on the plan here. So there's room for what, 1 or 2 vehicles at a time. And aside from Uber and Grubhub and so forth, which might also use that, this would be the main point for a move-in, move-out access. Is that correct?
So move in, move out would utilize the entrance for the parking garage for staging. Okay. These 2 stalls on this drawing on the plan south are that Uber pickup and drop off. It's something we heard through previous discussions about the need for additional spots for temporary parking to pick up, drop off food or passengers. And so that was included here to help address some of those on-site pickup questions. In addition to the stalls that, of course, would exist on Langdon Street. And I would note that some additional stalls would be brought onto Langdon Street with the closing of the driveway through the middle of the site.
Okay. So in summary and clarification, the bulk of the move-in, move-out process is going to happen in the garage.
Correct.
Okay. Thank you. That answers my questions.
Thank you. Commissioner Solheim.
Thank you. I also have one question for Brian. Brian, there is a mention in the staff report of the Magic Pack louvers that are street facing, as well as elsewhere on the facade. But primarily for the street facing, the ones on the first 3 floors seem to be pretty well disguised in that they are black against a black material and kind of hidden by a column, but the upper 2 are black louvers against a white panel. I'm wondering if you would be amenable to an adjusted condition that would either state that those louvers should be adjusted to match the panel, or that the black material be extended to better mask those louvers.
Yes, we would be fine with that condition.
Okay, thank you.
Any other questions of Brian while he's up? Commissioner Heck.
Thank you. Brian, it seems that the number of parking stalls is comparatively high given where this building is and who the residents are apt to be. What's your justification for 77 parking stalls for 79 units and 137 beds, I think I see?
So we actually have 75 vehicle parking stalls with the underground parking totally enclosed within the building. We have 79 bike parking stalls. And our total, I'm just trying to get our total bedroom count here. So we have 79 total units. So we're trying to balance the opportunity for parking on site with the location of the site. So we're roughly, about half the number of total parking stalls per total number of units.
I see that Dan Seeley has his hand
There we go.
raised too.
And Dan can add to that, but again, we've got 35 parking stalls for vehicles and 79 parking stalls for bicycles.
Okay, maybe I misread. You
Yes,
have,
exactly.
I must have misread the numbers. That makes more sense. So say that again. You have 35 parking stalls.
Correct. We have 35 parking stalls for the 79 units or 137 bedrooms. And then we have 79 indoor bike parking stalls for the building.
Okay. I guess my question about the number of car parking stalls kind of falls by the wayside, but I wonder if it's enough bike parking stalls given who your clientele is apt to be too, but it meets requirements. So, okay, I'll be quiet for a while. Thanks.
Dan, did you have something you wanted to add? Dan Seeley?
No, Chair. Brian corrected it. I just wanted to make sure we had the right number of parking stalls that we were discussing, the 35,
Okay.
not the 75. So thank you.
Thank you. Any further questions of registrants? I do have a couple of questions. One is, are these going to be furnished apartments? Brian or Dan?
Dan, do you want to weigh in?
I think
Dan?
I'm live. We are not currently planning on furnishing these apartments.
Okay. Then my other question is, as you undoubtedly know, this is a very pedestrian heavy area, and typically transportation engineering has a condition that indicates difficult constructability and to get the sidewalk to open because of how pedestrian heavy this is. Would you have any objection to having that standard condition added?
If I'm still live, staff and I did discuss that this afternoon, and we are absolutely willing and would work with traffic engineering and safety to make sure that pedestrian traffic throughout construction is as safe and fluid as possible. So
Wonderful. Yeah.
no, of course.
Okay. Very good. Any other questions of staff? Oh, I mean of registrants, sorry, of registrants. Seeing none, I will close the public hearing. Are there questions of staff? Any questions of staff? Seeing no raised hands, I would be looking for a motion. Alder Ugare.
I'll see if I can construct this properly. I move that the conditional use be approved for the project at 126 Langdon. The standards for conditional use having been met, subject to the conditions in the staff report plus two additional conditions. First, that louvers on the street-facing elevation match the background material. And second, that the standard condition for pedestrian safety during the construction period also be included.
Is there a second? Seconded by Alder Field. Alder Ugare, did you wish to speak to your motion?
No, thank you.
Are there any comments, discussion of the motion? Alder Govindaranjan.
Thank you, Chair. Hi, everyone. This is not in my district, but the developer, Steve Brown, has been very helpful talking to my constituents in my district throughout all this. And I've heard a lot from my constituents as well. So I just wanted to go on the record and share my thoughts here a little bit. I've heard from a fair amount of constituents. Overwhelmingly, most of them have been in favor of this. They really emphasize that this is a very good project in a sense because it's a simple project that just sticks to the necessities of what students need. Don't get into the unnecessary amenities, and it's expected to be fairly affordable for this area as well. I also know the developer has been fairly good working with the community. They had 2 neighborhood meetings, which Alder Bennett, I believe, details in her letter to the commission. But I just wanted to say props to that and share my support of this proposal as proposed, I suppose. Yeah, that's all. Thank you.
Thank you, Alder. Any further comments or input? Seeing no raised hands, we'll come to a vote, and I will assume unanimous consent unless I see a raised hand to object. Seeing no raised hands, the motion passes unanimously. Now, agenda item 11, Legistar 84330, certified survey map. Is there a motion? Alder Ugare.
I move the approval, or pardon me, I move the recommendation to Common Council to approve the certified survey map for the project at 126 Langdon Street.
Thank you. Seconded by Alder Field. Any discussion? Seeing no raised hands, we'll come to a vote, and I will assume unanimous consent unless I see a raised hand to object. Seeing no raised hands, the motion passes unanimously. I would just like to say that this has been vacant for a while. We had a false start once, and I agree with the Alder that it is a simpler approach and hopefully will be more affordable for our students and anybody else who wants to live there. So thank you for that. Okay, moving on to agenda items 14 through 16, which are related and will be considered as one public hearing, and then separate findings and motions on each. Agenda item 14, Legistar 83756, located at 3535 through 3553 University Avenue, Alder District 5. Consideration of a demolition permit to demolish 2 two-story commercial buildings. Agenda item 15, Legistar 83948, creating sections of the Madison General Ordinance to change the zoning of the property at the same location from planned development to commercial corridor transitional. And agenda item 16, Legistar 83759, same location, consideration of a conditional use in the proposed commercial corridor transitional district to modify the required rear yard height transition to a residential district to allow construction of a 5-story mixed-use building containing 1,435 square feet of commercial space and 71 apartments in Urban Design District 6, Transit-Oriented Development Overlay District. First, we will hear from Colin.
Thank you again, Chair. So as Chair Zellers noted, before the commission now is an application for rezoning, demolition, and conditional use approvals to change the zoning of this site from plan development to CCT, commercial corridor transitional, to demolish the two existing two-story multi-tenant commercial buildings, and then to construct the five-story mixed-use building. I will kind of start with the rezoning. The neighborhood plan for this area explicitly calls out CCT as an appropriate zoning district for this site. The site also is identified as commercial or as community mixed use, in the comprehensive plan, and staff believes that the CCT zoning district fits very well within the CMU land use recommendation, and believes the standards can be met for the rezoning. With the demolition, staff believes that the two buildings, the standards for demolition permits for the two buildings can be found met. They are slightly older buildings, but certainly nothing keeping them from being demolished. Lastly, there is a conditional use necessary to construct the five-story mixed-use building. As Chair Zellers noted, there are 71 dwelling units and about 1,400 square feet of rentable commercial tenant space in the proposal, as well as 77 vehicle parking stalls on the first floor and in underground levels. Access to the building is through a driveway at where the existing driveway is, which goes directly into the building. A second curb cut is proposed at the west end of the site. Trash recycling, deliveries, move in and move out would be accommodated in that loading area to the west end of the building. The five-story building steps back along the rear, the south side of the building. It's 5 stories. There is a terrace above the fourth and as well as above the third. I bring this up because the only conditional use request for this pertains to that step back. There is a height transition for areas where CCT zoning districts abut a residential district at the rear or side lot line. This is actually the situation on both the south side and the west side of this property. The proposal meets this transition on the west side, but on the south side, it does not. As designed. The building height at the rear yard setback line, according to the zoning requirements, shall not exceed 2 stories or 25 feet. And then from that point, the building height may increase at a ratio of 1 foot of rise to 1 foot of horizontal distance away from the property line, effectively creating a 45-degree angle up to the maximum allowed height. For this proposal, there are portions of the 3rd, 4th, and 5th floor that exceed that 45-degree transition line. The staff report compares this to several of the, actually what I believe are all of the approved height transition conditional uses that the Plan Commission has seen in past years. This is the largest in height and vertical and horizontal distance from that 45-degree transition line of those that have been approved in the past. Additionally, the length of the building portion that exceeds that transition height is the greatest of those reviewed and approved in the past as well. When we bring this into the context of the conditional use standards of approval, staff notes that There are concerns regarding approval standard 3, which states that the uses, values, and enjoyment of other property in the neighborhood for purposes already established will not be substantially impaired or diminished in any foreseeable manner. This is particularly with regard to the building's height and the transition in relation to the smaller residential buildings immediately south on Bruce Court. Staff also raises the issue in the context of standard approval 8, which requires that the Plan Commission shall find that the project creates an environment of sustained aesthetic desirability compatible with the existing or intended character of the area. Part of the height transition requirement in question is that it was established for the purpose of transitioning from larger buildings to smaller buildings, and a situation in which the transition step back is exceeded has significant aesthetic impacts on those smaller scaled residential buildings. Staff believes that all other applicable standards of approval can be met. And if the Plan Commission is able to find that standards of approval 3 and 8 can be found met, that the Plan Commission should approve this conditional use. If the Plan Commission finds that standards 3 and 8 cannot be met, the Commission can either refer this proposal out to a future date with specific direction to the applicant team as to how the standards of approval can be found met, or the Commission can also place the request on file without prejudice. If there are questions for staff, I am happy to answer them after the public hearing.
Thank you, Colin. We do have some registrants. I will open the public hearing. The development team applicant has requested to pool their time, so they will have, a total of 9 minutes. The speakers will be Randy Christensen, then Bruce Bosman, and then Patrick Terry. So first will be Randy Christensen. Randy, you have a total of 9 minutes along with your colleagues.
Great. Thank you, Chair. My name's Randy Christensen with Walter Wayne Development. Part of our team is JLA Architects, who put this design together. Pat Terry is part of that team, along with Peter Harmatuk and Jamie Callie, available for questions. Bruce Bosman, the owner of this particular property, owned it for 20-some years, will also speak on this. The other thing I'd like to add to Colin's comments is that we've held a neighborhood meeting, showed them this particular design, didn't have any objections from the neighborhood when we conducted the meeting. Also, you'll find on Legistar that Alder Vitiver attached a letter of recommendation and her support for this project. Being on the TOD, we feel that this is the highest and best use for this particular site, trying to provide that ridership and housing and so forth because of the housing shortage that we're experiencing here in the Madison area. So we do ask that you find that our conditional use that we're after, that we ask that you approve this tonight for us. With that, I will pass the baton on to Bruce Bosman, who will speak on a few items as well, and then Pat Terry going through the slides.
Thank you, Randy. The next registrant on the development team and owner, Bruce Bosman. Bruce.
Hi, everybody. Bruce, Apex Properties. We've been doing business in Madison since 1986. Owner-operator of over 2,000 units. We bought this property from Wes Zulte back, I think, 2002. He built a couple of wood frame 2-story offices that have kind of run their course. Big problem is that they don't have elevator access to the second floor, so it makes them kind of hard to use. I believe that this site is identified as being appropriate for 6 stories in the land use, the comprehensive plan. But we could not figure out a way to get it to work at that height because of how shallow the lot is. The Bruce Court properties behind us are quite a bit higher elevation than our property, about 6 feet higher to start with. So the reason for our conditional use application is we can't get the building to function as a 5-story building without this relief on that back facade. If we were to have to cut it down further than we already have due to the setbacks and the garbage turnaround and whatnot, we really don't have a viable project. So I don't think that we can really do much more than we've done. And we have redesigned this thing, I think 3 times now to get through UDC. So we're pretty deep into this. So anyway, that's my pitch. Questions to me, I'd be happy to try to answer.
Okay, the next registrant then on the development team is Patrick Terry. Patrick, you have the remaining minutes of the 9 minutes.
Thank you, Chair Zeller and Colin and commissioners. I just want to reiterate what previous speakers have said, but show you some pictures to back up our arguments. The property is on University Avenue. Next slide, please, Colin, if you don't mind. We are on University Avenue. We have Meadow Lane to the west and Highbury across the street. Those pictures below show the buildings that will be raised to make room for the 5-story building. Next slide, Colin. Our proposal, our current design has received unanimous UDC approval at our meeting on July 17th. We also had a neighborhood meeting May 20th and received positive feedback, including the neighbors appreciating the fact that a pedestrian access was not part of the development. As mentioned, there are plans from letters of support from Alder Vitterveer and neighbors listed on Legistar. Why are we asking for this conditional approval? Next slide, please, Colin. To meet the prescribed ordinance, we would need to eliminate 16 units on the 3rd, 4th, and 5th floor. Doing so would place the building corridor in the rear of the building instead of units, and it would reduce architectural quality of the building. You know, in order to make this work, we'd have to make it look like the Luxor in Vegas, and we just don't have the space for it. Next slide, please. As mentioned per Chapter 28.183, Parent 3 and 8 of the conditional uses, we did study the impacts of the surrounding property, especially the residential neighbors on the south. And although the height of the building does exceed the vertical angle setback, the mass and orientation and architectural quality is consistent around the entire building. We've got the same materials on the rear of the building as we do facing University. We did complete a shadow study, and there's no imposition onto the residents. And right now, the current view standing in Bruce Court is a privacy fence, existing tree, and sky. Next slide, please. Some whys as to why we wound up here. The lot's approximately 90 feet deep with a 20-foot rear yard setback, and the building to allow for double-sided parking inside is 65 feet. So we're trying to be as efficient as possible. This also shows some of the setbacks. This diagram shows some of the setbacks we had dealt with. The purple line is the property line. The green line is a 15-foot no-build easement that's required along the Boulevard of University. And finally, the red line is an additional 3 feet of land the city needs to put in a 7-foot sidewalk with the 1-foot maintenance easement per the TOD regulations. Next slide, please. We have stepped the building as much as possible to honor the setback without compromising the structural integrity or efficiency of the building and trying to be as respectful as possible to our neighbors. As Bruce mentioned, it's worth noting Bruce Court is approximately 6 feet higher on the west side of the building than our finished floors. So taking that 25 feet from the property line is slightly different. Throughout the design process, the development team has worked with city staff and neighbors to create the building with the highest and best use that's also aesthetically functional and reasonably fits within the neighborhood. With this in mind, along with final UDC approval, alder and neighborhood approval, we do ask the commissioners to allow this conditional use. I thank you for your time and look forward to your questions.
Thank you. The next, let's see, registrant wishing to speak is Peter Harmatek, West Broadway, Monona, support wishing to speak, representing JLA Architects. Peter, you have 3 minutes.
I'm just here to on support of Patrick if they needed any questions.
Okay, so you don't wish to speak. Okay, the next registrant, Andrew Geffert, Verona Avenue, Verona, in support, available to answer questions, representing JSD Incorporated. Jamie Callie, West Broadway, Monona, in support, available to answer questions, also representing JLA Architects. And that's it for the registrants. Are there questions of any of the registrants? Commissioner Heck.
Thank you. I'd just like to ask one of the representatives of the applicants or the applicants to just give a little bit more information about your neighborhood meeting and engagement, in particular with the folks that live on Bruce Court.
I can begin and follow it up. Randy Christensen can follow up. We've actually had a meeting Monday with the neighbor directly behind to discuss landscaping, how the building will impact their new property that they just purchased. Again, in the neighborhood meeting, May 20th, the neighbors recognize that this is a 5-story building, but they also recognize the need for housing and the effects of that on University Avenue. Randy, did you have anything to add?
Yeah, I mean, what I'd like to add is that I've met with the lady who purchased the house at 722 Bruce Court, and she is totally in favor with what we're doing. Also, she understands that there's going to be a privacy fence that's going to go along that whole area, and she really appreciated that we're going to maintain that privacy fence there. She in purchasing her property, she's going to look at, removing, she's got a kind of a large tree in her rear yard that she needs to remove because it's just the life of it is kind of, ran its course. And then as we're going to be constructing our property, there's going to be a few trees that are going to be taken out as well. But I've offered to her that we would look at planting a couple of trees on her side of the fence, as well as trying to create the landscaping along that whole privacy fence as well. So I met with her a couple of weeks ago, and then as Pat mentioned, we met with her again on Monday, but we had our whole team there. She certainly appreciated everything that we were doing, and I told her that we will keep her definitely in the loop as we move forward.
And did you hear from that other house across the street from that? I assume that looks to be about the same distance away.
Yeah, that's a rental property. There's tenants that are living there currently. We haven't heard anything from them at all. But the same for them as well. A privacy fence and plantings and so forth.
Thank you. Just one more question. There was public comment related to the desire to have a pedestrian bike connection between that backyard and the street back there. Is that something that has come up or you'd be amenable to?
Well, to be perfectly honest with you, when we did the neighborhood meeting, the neighborhood really appreciated the fact that it's going to stay the way it currently is right now, which there is no pass through. They really appreciated the fact that there would not be a pass through going through from Bruce Court onto our property. The other thing is the challenge because of the height difference between Bruce Court and our property.
I see. I guess in the staff report, it was mentioned that the neighborhood plan actually encourages such a connection. So there's a little bit of conflicting desires there, I guess.
And we heard it kind of loud and clear from the neighborhood that they really appreciated the fact that we're not going to create a pedestrian pass through.
Okay. Thank you. Those were my questions.
Yes, sir.
Any further questions? Commissioner McCahill.
Thank you. I was interested in condition number 42 from traffic engineering. It raised concerns about the garage door in the front entrance and traffic backing up and being able to use that entrance. So I was curious how you were planning to address that concern, and related to that, folks who are visiting by car to use the commercial space, where you would expect them to enter and park.
The center entrance into the property, I mean, our garage creates a situation where people, would not expect any backups onto University Avenue. They'll pull into the garage and they'll be able to go to their parking particular stall and come straight out. We also have created a wider opening there, so the vision out of that center entrance. And Pat Terry could certainly speak to this as well. But our commercial tenants will have indoor parking. We've got parking stalls inside the building for our commercial tenants.
Well, so just to be clear, if I'm reading condition 42 right, traffic engineering would like you to remove the garage door from that main point of access and alter the median or reconfigure the median to make to only allow certain types of movements. Are you planning to make those changes?
Yes, we are.
It's okay. It sounded like you just said you weren't.
No, I'm sorry. Yes, we are. We are going to make those improvements to the median in the center where there's a turn lane that the city would like us to do. We had a meeting actually with traffic as far as what we're going to be doing with that area to make it, a left in from University and a right out onto University. So we feel it's important to have a left into the building to utilize that center entrance. We wanted to maintain that center entrance because many years ago, Wes Zulte had created that center entrance, and that's why the boulevard is the way it is. So traffic would like us to create a turn lane in there. We're committed to doing that.
Did you have any?
But you're not removing the garage door. I'm having trouble understanding how
we're not removing the center entrance. No, that they wanted us to do the improvements to the city right away at the boulevard. Allowing us to keep the center entrance.
I think I'm lost on what's planned here. So
can I talk for a moment?
Go ahead, Bruce.
Okay, so the traffic folks were concerned that the center entrance could cause traffic backups, and they suggested, and we agreed, that if we created a left turn aisle so that you could then have your stack of cars in a dedicated lane rather than in the traffic lane, then they were comfortable with us maintaining the existing center entrance.
Okay, that's not how I'm reading the conditions, so I'm not sure what to make of that, but I guess thank you.
Maybe when we get to questions of staff, we can get some clarification there.
Yep, thanks.
Any further questions of the registrants? I don't see any raise. Oh, wait, Commissioner Heck.
Thank you. I want to discuss the connection, the pedestrian bike connection to Bruce Court again. I understand that the applicants that you said that the neighbors that you spoke with were appreciative of not having that connection, but I'm thinking about the 100 plus people that might live in your building that might appreciate having an easier access to bikeable, in particular bikeable streets by having such a connection. Did that aspect come up in the discussion with the neighborhood, or you were primarily interested in making those who attended happy, I assume?
So Patrick,
Yes.
no, this Patrick Heck. So what? So we've owned this property for a long time, and there has been instances where pedestrians will cut through our property, climb the stone wall, and have broken slats on the fence and gone up through into the Bruce Court. And the folks that live on that court don't like that. And I've been hearing about it for years, how this is a problem for them. So when we made our proposal, we took that into account. And beyond that concern of the neighbors, the practicality of figuring out how to do something that would ultimately make the neighbors mad eluded me, where you have this 6-foot rock wall, and to create some system of ramps that would do something to connect over that wall, it just seemed like kind of a fool's errand to do something that was going to just upset the neighbors. And lastly, this piece of input that we received from the person that lives out on the far east side that just put this note in, I think today, is the very first time that we've had anybody suggest to us that we should have a connection. So that's why we haven't.
Okay, I thought maybe it had come up because of the fact that it was in the neighborhood plan also to promote.
No, I'm sorry. We did not know that was in the neighborhood plan when we devised our plan, because there just visually, there just doesn't seem to be any means of doing that, unless it were to be some devoted project for that specific purpose. But honestly, it goes right through the middle of our property, and I just don't see how it could work.
Yeah, I not having been to the site, I can imagine where that would be a challenge. I will stop with that line of questioning. Thank you.
Well,
were your questions answered, Commissioner Heck?
Yes, but if Mr. Terry has something to say that would add to the article, that would be fine with me.
Go ahead, Patrick Terry.
Regarding bikeability, a major reason for enlarging the sidewalk to 7 feet was to enhance pedestrian traffic and the ability for bikes and pedestrians, that extra width. So there has been some consideration for bikeability, but again, further argument or further discussion, like Bruce had provided, is the main reason for not having the connection.
Okay, actually, that was helpful information. Thank you.
Okay.
Yes.
Thank you, Commissioner Heck, and thank you, Patrick Terry. I see no raised hands. I do have a follow-up question or two. Clearly, the conditional use is something that staff has pointed out as being a concern, and it being much more significant than has been approved in the past. My question is, since this is a real node of bikeability, pedestrian, buses, walkability, did you consider reducing the parking to be able to maintain the number of units while adhering much more closely to the 45-degree angle, and perhaps even be able to reduce rents by not having to build so much parking.
Let me speak on that, and then it's possible that Pat might have something more to add. The thing that's driven our parking requirement is, first, we need to have a specific number of stalls dedicated to the commercial spaces. So that takes some of them right off the bat. And then there is no place to park anywhere around this building. We looked at this question. We inquired about whether our tenants could park on streets behind, and there aren't any parking permits available for this site. So we would only be able to rent to folks that did not need any place to park. So that was a big factor. It really concerns me to build something that then nobody wants to live there, because this is not core downtown. This is West Side, and the interest in people having cars still exists on the West Side. And then lastly, the amount of parking on the ground floor is fairly minimal. It's not like the whole ground floor is taken up by the parking. So even if we eliminated all parking on the ground floor, it wouldn't be enough to change the stack of the building to the point where it would work at a 1-story lower. And it feels like a disservice to everyone concerned to then put up only a 4-story building where the comprehensive plan suggests 6. So this design that we've come forward with is the confluence of a bunch of different compromises to try to come up with something that could work.
Okay. Thank you, Bruce. Any further questions of applicants? Seeing none, I'll close the public hearing. Questions of staff? Commissioner McCahill.
Thanks. I'd like to follow up on the question about the entrance, if anyone on staff was able to talk to traffic engineering at all. So it sounds like from the development team, they would very much like a westbound left turn. My read of the condition is that they should remove the garage door from their main access point and alter the median to allow a left turn. Is that correct?
Let me just double check here. Yes. So if I can share my screen again, I will try to demonstrate this. So the project site here is at the south. This driveway is proposed to remain. They have a garage door here. Traffic engineering would allow them to maintain a westbound left in if the garage door itself was removed. The concern from traffic engineering is that if there's a garage door here, that someone pulls in, if there's already a queue here, they don't get all the way into the driveway. They're blocking traffic, or potentially being involved in a collision there. So one of the options is to remove the actual door here to better allow flow in and out of the building. I think the other option, if you'll let me look at that, is to reconfigure reconfigure this median so that there is right in and out only from the in and out of the building. But this eastbound left turn would still exist to allow access into Shorewood Hills.
Thank you. That was my read. I thought I heard from the team that they were not going to remove that garage door, so I'll just assume they know that they're going to have to in order to make those accommodations. One more question. Colin, did you happen to hear from T if they had any concerns about having 2 curb cuts? This is a very pedestrian-oriented area, and that creates more conflicts with pedestrians.
Yes. I did discuss that with traffic engineering. It's something that we had gone over several times, both as staff and with the applicant. The site is quite long, and so traffic engineering, because of the length, was less concerned about adding a second curb cut, and kind of because going back to your last question, access in and out of the site with just the existing driveway is problematic, and traffic engineering believes that the overall site safety, especially concerning trash, pickup and drop off and things like that, is improved with the second driveway.
Okay, thanks. That's all I've got.
Thank you, Commissioner. Any further questions of staff? Seeing no raised hands, is there a motion? Commissioner Solheim.
I will move that the Plan Commission find the standards for zoning map amendments are met and forward the amendment from PD to CCT for the property at 3535 to 3553 University Avenue to the Common Council with a recommendation of approval.
So you're talking agenda item, the zoning map amendment?
Correct. Is that out of order from the agenda? I'm just going from the staff report, sorry.
That's okay. That's okay. As long as people know what they're voting on. Seconded by Alder Field. Did you wish to speak to your motion, Commissioner Solheim?
No, I'll speak on the conditional use. I'm realizing, yes, the demo should have been first,
Okay.
sorry.
That's okay. Okay. Any comments or discussion? Seeing no raised hands, I'll assume unanimous consent unless I see a raised hand to object. Seeing no raised hands, the motion passes unanimously. Looping back to number 14, Legistar 83756. Do we have a motion? Commissioner Solheim.
I'll move that the Plan Commission find the standards for demolition are met and approve demolition permits for the buildings at 3535 and 3553 University Avenue, subject to the conditions in the staff report.
Thank you. Seconded by Alder Gare. Any discussion? Seeing none, we'll go to a vote and I'll assume unanimous consent unless I see a raised hand to object. Seeing no raised hands, the motion passes unanimously. And then lastly, agenda item 16, Legistar 83759. Commissioner Solheim.
I'll move that the Plan Commission finds that the standards of approval for a conditional use are met and approve the requested conditional use for the building at 3535 to 3553 University Avenue, subject to the conditions in the staff report.
Seconded by Alder Field. Commissioner Solheim, you wish to speak to your motion?
Yeah, just specific to the standards for approval and related to the height and 45-degree transition. I would just note that I appreciate the developer speaking with the neighbor. I think there is significant existing landscaping there, and additional landscaping and a fence will help a lot because this does already, was identified for CCT in our plans and meets all of their requirements. I think that it's appropriate. And also, I think it helps that this is abutting the side yards of those properties and not necessarily in the backyard view, which is a help for the neighbor as well.
Thank you, Commissioner. Is there further discussion or comments? Commissioner Heck.
Thanks. I would just add that the shadow study presented by the applicants was also, I think, a point in favor of granting this.
Thank you, Commissioner Heck. Any further comments or observations? Seeing no raised hands, we'll come to a vote, and I will assume unanimous consent unless I see a raised hand to object. Seeing no raised hand, the motion passes unanimously. Next is business by members. Any business by members? Seeing no raised hands, we'll go to the Secretary's report. Bill.
Thank you, Chair. Very quickly here, just a few things to note. On your agenda under recent Common Council actions, I wanted to point out that the rezoning of 306 North Brook Street, which was the Porchlight development, the 15-story building, if you'll recall that, was approved on July 16th, subject to the Plan Commission's recommendation. And also on July 16th, the Plan Commission did not approve the appeal of the Plan Commission's approval of the conditional use for the Old Sauk Road project. That motion to appeal failed on a vote of 8 to 11, and it required 14 votes to approve it. So the Plan Commission's decision on that case was upheld. We kind of have this unusual case of there being 4 weeks until your next meeting. And so you can see some of the upcoming agenda items. Given the amount of time, these agendas are going to evolve a little bit, but there's really probably nothing to highlight for the meeting for August 26th or September 9th. At this point, but there will be, this will evolve a little bit. And finally, I just wanted to note that starting Monday, Megan Tuttle, who's the new Planning Division Director, will be starting. And you all will love her. I've been meeting with her. She's going to be great as a Planning Division Director and the Secretary to the Plan Commission. So I will expect that she will be joining the Plan Commission at your next meeting on August 26th.
Thank you. And thank you, Bill, for pinch hitting for the Planning Director. We've appreciated having you here and being the Secretary of the Plan Commission. So thank you. Thank you.
It's my pleasure, and you will still see me around, so don't worry.
Yes, okay.
Including probably at that next meeting. So
okay, very good.
Thank you.
Okay. So I would be looking for a motion to adjourn. Moved by Alder Field, seconded by Commissioner Solheim, and I will assume unanimous consent unless I see a raised hand to object. Seeing no raised hands, motion passes unanimously and we are adjourned. And I will see you on August 26th and have a good month, everybody. Take care. Bye-bye.